So let us get started with section 8 of chapter 3. Here we will learn how to develop an industry scenario as a forecasting technique. Basically understanding forecasting in detail. I am sure you all would have done some forecasting. If I give you an example, last semester after writing an exam, you were forecasting your marks, that I will get 70 marks in marketing management, 68 marks in management theory and practice, 75 marks in information system for managers. Some of you were accurate in your forecasting. Some of you were not accurate. Some of you used a technique of checking every single piece of the question that you have answered, and you made some assumptions there that the professor, if he checks it in a more strict way, I will get 72. If he is lenient, I might get 76 as well. So this is where forecasting is done on almost regular basis. So in this particular section, we will explore the importance of forecasting in the business world and how to avoid the dangers of faulty assumption. See, if there is a theory or if there is some forecasting techniques that we are talking about, if it has large number of assumption, then the forecasting technique might not be accurate because it is based on large number of assumptions. Lesser the number of assumption, better it is. So we need to understand a forecasting technique alongside the various assumptions that are made. Environmental scanning helps us gather data. So if you remember, in the earlier sections we have studied the importance of environmental scanning. How do we do environmental scanning? So they help us gather the data from various places. And data on what? Data on current situations and trends. But predicting the future is challenging. Just on the basis of past data, you cannot predict the future. There are lot of other elements that will come into play. Forecasts are typically built on a set of assumptions, and the accuracy of these assumptions is crucial. As mentioned, if you keep on making assumptions after assumptions after assumptions, then you are going to face challenge in terms of proving your forecasting technique. But accuracy of those assumptions will make your forecasting technique real for the organization. Faulty assumptions are a common cause of forecasting errors. Definitely, large number of forecastings go haywired. Many teams who are playing in India right now, the World Cup, they all would have made large number of assumptions that how they are going to qualify for the semi-final. And we have seen some of the best champions are not able to make it to the list. I am sure they would have had some kind of an assumptions based on some criterias. Many strategic plans are based on projections of the current situation, which can lead to unexpected outcomes. Let us consider the example of oil prices. In 2007, few expected the price of oil to exceed $80 per barrel. However, by July 2008, it soared close to $150. This caught many off guard, especially US auto companies that continued producing large vehicles, assuming gasoline prices would remain around $2 per gallon. When gasoline prices hit $4 per gallon in July 2008, the demand for these vehicles plummeted. So this is where your assumptions are very important. So the lesson here is very clear. Assumption can have a significant impact on your business. Relying on a faulty assumption can be detrimental to your company's success. Let us talk about how to make informed forecast. So businesses should continuously gather data on current trends and market conditions. And please remember, we live in a VUCA world or in a VUCA environment where the environment is highly dynamic, it's volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, and it is highly ambiguous, which will keep on changing. What was applicable yesterday might not be applicable today. So the trend keeps on changing. So the companies should and must keep on gathering data around the current trends. Then the companies should, or the businesses should, challenge assumptions and consider various other scenarios as well. They should monitor external factors that can influence business outcomes. Businesses should be prepared to adapt strategies based on the changing circumstances. If circumstances are changing outside, then you need to change various things within your organization. If COVID-19 is hitting the world, then your company can think of creating or manufacturing sanitizer for the people, which many companies did. Forecasting is a crucial part of strategic planning. It helps businesses prepare for various scenarios and avoid relying too heavily on potentially flawed assumption. So the main idea is to be careful around faulty assumptions. So let us now explore various methods that help businesses make informed predictions about the future. Forecasting is about making educated guesses about what might happen in future. It might not necessarily happen, because there is a probability of yes and there is also a probability of no. Something can happen and something cannot happen. It's not about predicting the future with certainty, but making reasonable assumption and not dangerous assumptions. So let's talk about various methods. We can talk about trend extrapolation. It is a widely used technique where we extend current trends into the future. So if your company sales has been 20 units, then 40 units, 60 units, 80 units, then you can make an assumption that the growth will be of another 20 units and we will cross 100 units. On what basis you are able to find this out? On the basis of your current trend. So it is based on the assumption that the world changes slowly in the short term. Other things remaining same, these things would happen. So they feel that in a long run things would change, but in a short run things would change very slowly. For example, let's go back to the same old example of oil price. Very few people expected oil prices to spike above $80 per barrel. This assumption led to challenges for car manufacturers who continued producing large vehicles assuming low gas prices. Then the next technique is brainstorming. This is my favorite because you get large number of experts into one particular place and you ask them to share their forecasting for a particular thing that you want. Your experts are very clear on their discussion and the assumption that they are making. It is a creative, non-quantitative technique where people with knowledge, as I said, they are expert. They are expert in a particular situation or they are expert in a particular thing. So where people with knowledge of a situation propose ideas without criticism. One of the most important thing in brainstorming is that you should never criticize an idea. You should always list down those ideas and then you can discuss on those ideas. It's great for operating managers who rely on intuition. Next is expert opinion. Expert opinion involves knowledgeable individuals in a specific area forecasting developments. The Delphi technique used by Rand Corporation gathers assessments from experts and refines them until consensus is reached. So you keep on taking the information from large number of people who are experts, until the time you get the answer that convinces you that yes, now I can take the consensus. For example, you hire 6 experts for their opinion, 3 are in favor of the decision, 3 are not in the favor. You can never reach the consensus in such a case. So you will then redraft your questions, you will ask the question in a different way, you will find more parameters, more factors till the time you get to know the answer to the question. Next technique is statistical modeling. Statistical modeling uses quantitative methods to discover factors that link time series data. Regression analysis and econometric methods are examples for statistical modeling. However, this relies heavily on historical data. Now, because there is a data involved, you need to gather the right quality of data. Because if the data quality is poor, there are a lot of data errors in the data that you have collected, then your prediction will also be faulty. Then comes the prediction markets. Prediction markets uses crowdsourcing. You go to the crowd, and this crowd can be customers, employees, to predict the future events. Companies like Microsoft and Google have used these markets for forecasting product success or sales. So just imagine the biggest companies in the world are using it, that is Google and Microsoft. Intrade.com also offers a platform for predictions. It is my request to everyone that please go through the website and check how the prediction is happening. Then the next is scenario writing. We will be covering this in detail. Scenario writing is widely used for long-term forecasting. It creates narrative descriptions of different possible futures. For example, you would remember when we talk about there are 2 ways that the situation can happen. If A happens, then there will be further 2 ways, which is C and D. When B happens, there will be further 2 ways, which is E and F. If A does not happen and B happens, and when B happens, E and F happens, and out of E and F only F happens, then there are chances that G and H would happen. And accordingly, you have to find out the whole situation. So you are creating a scenario out here. Companies like 3M, General Electric and British Airways have successfully used scenario planning to envision future needs. What if the sales does not grow? What if the competitors launch their product? What if competitors don't change the price when we change the price? So all this scenario writing and scenario discussion is important. So in short, forecasting is important part of planning for the future, and we all are doing this program so that we can plan our future. So you have done some forecasting that after doing this program, your career will be on the next level. By utilizing a combination of these techniques, businesses can make more informed decisions and better adapt to changing circumstances. Now let us talk about creating industry scenarios. We will here explore a structured approach to foreseeing the future of a specific industry. An industry scenario is like a sneak peek into the future of an industry. So you want to know about the future of an industry, because now we have studied forecasting. Now let's talk about the forecasting in a particular industry. It's developed by examining how future societal forces may influence various key groups in the industry, because any forecasting that you do within the industry will help you in handling those situations in future. Let us go one by one and understand this whole industry scenario in detail. Firstly, start by looking at potential changes in the natural environment and societal factors worldwide. So, if you ask me right now, sir, what is natural environment and what is societal factors, I would request you to go and watch this whole chapter again, which will be a lengthy exercise, but it will help you revise the concept. Consider how climate change regulations might impact the energy industry's future. After you are done with your basic examination, which is talking about potential changes in the natural environment and societal factors, we then recognize uncertainties in the industry, because that is very important for you to know that how industry gets affected. So, recognizing uncertainties in the industry's task environment, like potential new entrants, competitors, substitutes, buyers, suppliers, other important stakeholders. And I am sure I do not need to explain this further, because we have studied the Michael Porter forces in detail in the earlier section. In the retail industry, uncertainties could include the rise of e-commerce, changing consumer preferences and supply chain disruptions. Then after we are done with the overall uncertainties, make a range of sensible assumptions about future trend in these areas and not dangerous assumptions. Here we have to talk about sensible assumption. For the technology industry, trends might include advancement in artificial intelligence, cyber security concerns and changing consumer tech habits. And you can see already how consumers' habits are changing on daily basis when it comes to the usage of technology. After we done this, you need to blend your assumptions about individual trends into coherent scenarios. These scenarios should depict different possible futures. So, here we talk about the same plan A and plan B, when plan A can happen or plan B can happen. But when plan A happens, then C and D are probable result. When plan B happens, E and F are the probable outcomes. So, develop scenarios where the technology industry faces increased regulation, rapid innovation or shift towards sustainable practices. We have seen this type of things in the technology scenarios in the past sections as well. After you are done with that, examine what the industry might look like under each scenario. If plan A happens, then how the industry will change. If plan B happens, then how the industry will change. Consider the challenges and opportunities that exist in the industry. Let's take an example. In a scenario with stricter regulations in the pharmaceutical industry, analyze the impact of drug development and pricing. After we have taken care of these things, then we need to determine the potential sources of competitive advantage for businesses in each scenario. If scenario A happens, then this is my advantage. If scenario B happens, this is my advantage. Whatever happens, I should be the winner. In a scenario where consumers prioritize eco-friendly products, companies with sustainable practices gains a competitive edge in the fashion industry. So, just imagine you thought that the future will belong to eco-friendly products and your company has started moving towards eco-friendly, and you see that the consumer pattern and consumers consumption in the eco-friendly space is changing. That is definitely going to benefit the company. After that, you will anticipate how competitors may react and adapt to each scenario. So, whether the competitors are going to launch their vertical of eco-friendly products or they are simply going to ignore, considering that it is a fad and it is not going to be there for a longer period of time. In the hospitality industry, competitors might change their service models in response to scenarios with increased demand for contactless check-ins. After we are done with this, we have to choose the scenarios that are either most likely to occur or have the most significant impact on the company's future. So use these scenarios as assumptions when crafting your business strategies. A solar energy company might prioritize scenarios where government incentives for renewable energy are strong. So these things can be helpful for any business. Industry scenarios help companies prepare for an uncertain future. You need to know all the scenarios that can happen. Yeah, like for example, certain teams which are not qualifying or who are struggling to get qualified into the semi-finals for the World Cup, they are already calculating all type of scenario that team A should beat team B with so many runs. If that doesn't happen, then the second scenario, then the third scenario, and all these scenarios will keep on changing as the outcomes gets generated over a period of time. So they guide strategic planning and decision making by exploring various potential outcomes. So this is the end of section 8. Now let us go ahead and move on to section 9 of chapter 3.